Hello and welcome to video number 2 for Patreon. This is CJ Lehi, sitting in my writing office. I've got some new tools since the last time that I did one of these videos. I have this cool little lapel mic here that I'm hoping the sound is a little bit better than it was the last time, not quite so echoey, and I'm really excited to try out some new things. Use Patreon maybe a little bit more fully than I have been able to in the past. As I mentioned in my last post, I've had some wins. I've gotten some cool. These are back here rejections and approvals and victories and stuff. And that gold one there actually is from the Eagle Mountain Arts competition that I won with a story called Three Boodles. And I promised that I would write. Or that I would give you guys a look at Three Boodles. So that's what this video is. I'm going to read the first 3 or 4 pages. Three Boodles is a kid's story that I wrote probably a year and a half ago. I can't remember exactly what it was that started me writing it. I think it was just the words Three Boodles. I don't know how else to say it exactly. I remember hearing those words in my head and they sort of kicked around a little bit, and then a story grew out of it. So here's the first 4 pages of it, and I'm hoping that you like it. And if you do, please share it around with your friends, relatives, and etc. Let your kids listen to this, and if you really like it, let me know in the comments, and I'll finish the story off in a video and an audio next time, so you can play that in the car or when you're commuting. I know a lot of people like to do that. So here you go with the first 4 pages of Three Boodles. The last thing I wanted to do was spend one of the last few precious days of summer vacation with my uncles. Sometimes a kid just doesn't know a good thing when he sees one. It wasn't my fault. For one thing, they smelled funny. But don't tell them I said so. I hated going over to their house, but Mom said I needed to get to know them. And besides, she had some shopping to do, maybe for Christmas, although it was only August. And I'd had a great time just like the last time I went. I didn't have a good time then, I said. You said you did, she said, pulling onto their street. I know you wouldn't lie to me, not to your mother. What can a guy say to that? No, Mom, I wouldn't. There then. You'll have a great time with Uncle Riggs and Uncle Harvey. They have some of the most amazing stories. But half an hour later, I wasn't hearing any stories. I was sitting on a stool in the garage shelling peas. Who shells peas anymore? Don't you eat the whole pod? I thought peas meant the whole thing. I popped one in my mouth and started chewing. I like peas, but it was stringy and bitter and disgusting, and I spit it out onto the floor. Look at that, Riggs. Kid doesn't even know from peas. That was my Uncle Harvey. He's not a very nice man. It probably would have gone on like that for hours, the 3 of us shelling peas. Split the pod open, use your thumb to break the peas loose from the pod, dump the peas into the bowl, throw the pod in the brown garbage sack, with me wishing the whole time I'd been able to talk my mom into letting me keep my iPod so at least I could put my headphones on and listen to music instead of silence. But then there was a funny smell in the garage all of a sudden. Not like old man smell. Something different, an outdoorsy smell. The kind I remember from the once we went camping out in the desert outside of town. And then I blinked, and I wasn't in the garage anymore. Not just me, all of us. One minute I was sitting in a stuffy old man garage, and the next minute I'm on top of a rocky hill surrounded by sagebrush and dirt, with a few spiny cactus sticking their arms up down below. My uncles were there, still sitting on their ratty old lawn chairs, blinking in the hot sunlight, but their sad little shorts and t-shirts had been replaced by flannel cowboy shirts and jeans. My clothes were different too, not the stuff I put on when I left the house today. For instance, I was wearing a gun. It was heavy, which probably meant it was real. And after a minute, Uncle Riggs said, well, swear word. He really says that, swear word. That's not me making it sound better or anything. Thought we were out of this, Uncle Harvey said. Yeah, said Uncle Riggs, unholstering his own gun. He sighted down the barrel and, like he'd been doing it all his life, he reached out and spun the cartridge, popped the revolver open, checked the bullets, nodded, clicked it back together, and shoved it back in his holster. Brought the kid this time, Uncle Harvey said. Yeah, first time for him, it looks like. Uncle Harvey stood up, set down his bowl of peas, and looked over the landscape. We were on top of a hill, like I said, or not quite on top, a few yards down one side, with the hill, a pretty steep one, sloping away in front of us like we were at the hinge part of a paper fan, getting wider as it goes, spreading away from us. Wait, my first time? What were they talking about? There were other times? I was sitting on a rock, not the stool from the garage. It was cutting into my behind. The sun was bright, and I had to squint and put my hand up in front of my eyes, and that's when I saw that I was wearing a hat. Not the baseball cap I had on, but a cowboy hat. I took it off my head and stared at it like I'd never seen one before. Yeah, definitely his first time, Uncle Riggs said. Look, kid, this is going to take some getting used to, but we aren't going to have a lot of time here to get you up to speed, so pay attention. I was still staring at the hat. Spanky, Uncle Riggs said, waving his hands in front of my face. His name's Doug, Uncle Harvey said, still scanning the landscape. Uncle Riggs craned his neck back to look at his brother. Doug? What is your niece thinking? Isn't that a dog's name? She's your niece, too. You know as much about it as I do. Harvey and Riggs aren't just my uncles. I mean, they are, but they're really my mother's uncles. So that makes them great uncles, but you can't call someone great Uncle Harvey. It takes too long. Nobody likes it. So I just call them uncle and everyone's happy, or I would have been happy if I wasn't with my uncles, and if I were back someplace that made sense and not out here in a Wild West movie. Doug, pay attention here, Uncle Riggs said. I looked up at him and the sun blinded me right behind his head. I jerked my head away and closed my eyes. This is hopeless, Harv, Uncle Riggs said from above me. The kid doesn't know enough not to look into the sun. Give him a break. You weren't any better your first time. Yes, I was. It didn't faze me at all. Uncle Harvey snorted. You wet your pants, if I recall. We were on a ship. That was a wave coming in over the bows. Anyway, we don't have time for this, Uncle Riggs said and knelt down in front of me. Doug, I need you to focus on me for a second. I did, squinting at his leathery face, framing his steely blue eyes. He had the same eyes as my mother. I never noticed that before. We're in a situation here. You're going to need to help us out, and some of this is going to be a little scary. There they are, Uncle Harvey said, pointing down to the hill to our right. At the base, there was a small knot of people milling about and looking up at us. They were pointing, too, like they'd been searching for us and were excited they had found us. Uncle Harvey drew his pistol. And that's the first 4 pages of Three Boodles. If you like, please share that around on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all of those wonderful things that we use to communicate with each other these days. And if you want to hear the rest of it, let me know in the comments and we'll put that out to you next time. Thank you very much for all that you do for me and for my family. I really appreciate you and your patronage. Talk to you next time.